And we are live.
Morning.
How we doing?
Doing well this morning.
All
It's
right.
awesome. Another awesome Friday.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
buddy.
Yeah. We had a couple inches of snow the other day, and now it's mostly gone. The
Yeah.
beauty of Colorado.
Yeah. It's dry and then it's gone.
Yep, it comes and it goes. All right, cool. So we're gonna give everyone a chance to kind of to join in, but we're gonna maybe recap a little bit about what we did in the last stream while that's happening. So I am going to share my screen and so okay, got that. There it is. They added a. I've never seen this labeled dressing room before, which is interesting.
Updates.
I'm just trying to get it to sign in, if that matters. There you go. Hey, yo, Cleverlike. All right. So cool. So I'm going to recap what we did in the last session, which was last Friday. Sadly, I didn't squeeze in another session. I just got a little too busy, and I didn't want to take anyone by surprise. So this is our hammer dude. The stream helped us come up with this idea. So take credit or take the blame, whatever it is. And I'll take the blame for the terrible artwork. So, it is a little embarrassing, but this is it. It just kind of it has an idle animation, which is this very surveillance camera-esque head movement, and then it has some walking movement, which could use a little tweaking. So maybe we'll get into the finer points of that at some point. But today, I think the more fun thing would be to drop the hammer on some people. What do you think, Alan?
I say we do it.
Yeah, we're going to drop the hammer.
Do it proper.
Yeah. So this thing is just a little too timid for us. Oh, change our game mode to survival just to make sure we know it doesn't try to attack us. But check this out. If you kill it.
Oh, how much life has it got? Oh, there it goes. It's got a thing.
You get some iron. Well, it's a hammer. So we changed the loot tables to give you iron, a various selection of iron armor. And look at this perfect setup I have. I've got helmet, the leggings, and the chest plate. 3 separate loot tables. Nice. So anyway, that's the working loot table. So this series started from the very beginning, where we started to hack existing vanilla packs just to get you comfortable with all the different things that are customizable and how to customize them. So go back all the way to the beginning if you want to get more familiar with some of the anatomy of these add-ons. And then what we started to do, once we kind of hacked that enough and kind of proved that we know how to get stuff working, then what we did was start from the beginning with a template file that we used to build our own custom entity, which the hammer. That's what we ended up with. So now that we have this custom entity, we're going to start to dig a little deeper into it. This custom entity, can't you see it? Can't you see it? It's right there. But it is called dude at this moment in time. And there it is. Okay, so I'm going to save and quit just to exit out of that world, and then I'm going to go into. Okay, so I'm in Visual Studio Code. What I did was I opened up my. I'll close all these things here. So over on the left-hand side, back to this again. There we go. So over on the left-hand side, I opened up my com.mojang folder, and this is the folder you should have learned how to put into your quick access bar previously. So boy. Okay. So in your file explorer, you should have quick access com.mojang. And so what I did was I'll just kind of peek it over here. So I right clicked on it and I said open with code. And that opened this folder here, which is all of the things, including the worlds, the behavior packs, resource packs. But what I showed you previously is how to put the stuff you're actively working on inside of the development, behavior, and resource packs, because that gives a more real-time update while you're coding. So that's why we are in these folders. And so let's see, behaviors is what we want to look at. And then here's our template. Entities. So our template behavior pack is the behavior pack that has our custom entity in it. And so in our custom entity, you could see that we have in the entities folder, we have do.json, and we have, hey, Gumby, awesome. Thank you for being here. Let us know if you have any questions. We have do.json in the loot table that talks about what drops when the entity dies. So that's all that's in the behavior pack right now. So what I'm going to do is click on the do.json just to open that up and just kind of remind you some of the anatomy of this file. Now, there's two other main sections in a behavior pack. First one would be component groups, which are groupings of components that could be turned on and off. Hey, Peace Ninja, what's up? And then we have events, which would be below components, which are things that get triggered that cause us to change the way the entity is behaving kind of in real time in the game. And so, and the components are kind of like the anchor, genetic, like this is what it is, definitely all the time, and not to be switched out, right? So that's kind of like, so this entity doesn't have any dynamic behavior at the moment. And we'll stick with that for now. So if I'm looking at some of these things, it is currently writable. Is that true?
Yeah, we were writing it last time.
Did we write it last time?
Yeah, well, it was tiny at the time.
Oh, yeah.
We were like hanging up to the top left-hand side of it. Yeah, there you go.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So it's writable. We probably don't need that. We could see here that, so input ground controlled, which allows the WASD keys to control it. And then also it being writable and having a seat. I think we'll take that out. If we need it, we'll go through the trouble of putting it in properly later, but we'll take that out just to kind of have things set here. Let's see. It has a random strolling behavior, a movement basic, collision box, a scale of 2. So we designed it a little too small, and we made up for it in the behavior pack by scaling it up twice the size, which is something you can do. It's best when you're designing a model or you're having someone design a model, it's best to give them like good sense of like how many blocks in each direction this thing should be, and try to get them to design it as close to actual size as possible. But then you could use the scale to kind of tweak it and make it kind of fit perfectly in the world. Okay, so let's see here. We have, so the one thing I want to show you is kind of like good habits for solving these problems, rather than just tell you how to do it all and then you kind of not have a clue on how to do it on your own. What we're going to think about here is this attacking behavior. We think about vanilla. Let's first of all think about the hammer, right? So we want the hammer to, I'm thinking, Catlin, let me know if you have any ideas, or chat, let me know if you have any ideas. I'm just thinking the hammer gets, once it gets its sights on you and gets close enough, it kind of gets like charged up, and then boom, just smacks you. Is that cool?
Yeah, give it a little bit of anticipation so we know it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. So we could think about entities that do that. What's one entity that gives you some anticipation? So while you're thinking of that, what I'm going to show you is what I've done also is in the past I show you how to download the vanilla packs. So let's see here. And what I do is I put the vanilla packs in my quick access bar so that I can reference them quickly. So what I'm going to do is just kind of open up the vanilla behavior packs in. So I'll go here and I'll say right click, open with code. And this is my vanilla behavior pack. Okay. So I want you to use these packs, the vanilla packs, as your resource for figuring these things out. So now we're looking at all of the behaviors that exist in vanilla Minecraft. So if you're trying to create something that matches vanilla Minecraft, then you can go ahead and kind of look at that. So did anybody have an idea of what mob gives us some anticipation?
Y'all are gonna have to do this one. I don't know enough of the mobs in Minecraft.
So I'm curious about a creeper because it kind of hisses and flashes before it explodes. So I'm curious to see if that attack is relevant for what we're doing. And so I'm looking in its behaviors to see kind of what it does here. So it looks for target nearby inside a certain range. If it's inside the range, then start exploding. If it's outside the range, then stop exploding. On vision lost inside range, stop exploding. So if you're close enough to it, but you're hidden and it can't see you, then it'll stop trying to explode as well. So that's interesting if you didn't know that behavior existed.
Yeah, this is one of those things that's kind of fun when you start digging through these codes. You're like, oh, it does that? I didn't know I could wait, that's a feature, not a bug. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. It is kind of interesting. Like some of the rideable attributes, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that I could ride that. Some of the things that are coded in there are fun. It's definitely great to just kind of peruse these and become familiar with them because it'll give you a lot of ideas just in looking at them. Okay. So one of the important things is we're going to assemble the components of kind of like what makes an entity want to attack you. And so it needs to have a certain kind of attack. It needs to have some, we should set whatever the damage is for the attack. And then we should set like kind of how it decides to target who to attack. And then we put all those things together that will make up the attacking behavior of that entity. So there's going to be multiple behaviors that we have to pull in to kind of complete this attacking behavior. One of them, the most basic one, is the nearest attackable target. So one of the things I'm going to do, what I like to do in Visual Studio Code to help me copy and paste things correctly, because there's some nested brackets here. And so instead of accidentally making a mistake here, I like to go off to the left and click the arrow to collapse it. And this collapses it into its components. So you get the top and bottom together right next to each other. And then I click on the line, click and hold on the line number 199, and I drag down to 213, which selected both lines entirely, including the carriage return after the end one, so I can insert it nicely. Mm-hmm. And it also includes everything inside. So if I open it up, it includes all of that. So I'm going to copy. And I'm going to go back to my dude. And we're going to kind of, these should be organized a little better. So I'm not really giving you any great advice here with my organization, but we'll try to group the behavior, the attack behaviors together. So nearest attackable target, you must see it is true. Must see forget duration is 3, and we could read up on that. But basically, like if it loses sight of it for 3 seconds, I think it's going to forget it and mosey on back to looking for a target. And then the entity types that can be targeted. So this is a filter that allows you to define what makes up a targetable entity. In this case, the test is the family is player. So there's some cool stuff here. It's worth a quick view. Now, the one thing I told you last time, some of the websites, bedrock.dev is one that we go to a lot. I'm going to use this as a resource to go to the entities section. And I can't even remember what I was doing. Oh, filters. There's even a section for filters here on the left. So if I click on that, it'll take me to filters. What's cool here is you could set what you're testing for. And you could test for a lot of cool stuff here. You could test for equality, inequality. You could test clock time. Like you can test other attributes. The distance to the nearest player. If the player has a certain ability, so you can, for instance, attack only players with some certain ability or other entities with certain ability. Has biome tag, has component. So component would be a thing like, if it has fire immunity or if it has attack as one of its components and you want to attack it back, then you could set this to check for that. So any of the various components that exist inside your behavior pack in the components section, you could test for those and come up with a true or false condition. Has a container, has damage. Has equipment. So if it's armed, for instance, like if it has something in its hand, you can choose to attack it or not attack it based on whether or not it's brandished a weapon. Has mob effect, like so if it has some mob effect added to it and you want to attack it, so you can actually pick the specific mob effect. I just did this for the on the Farmcraft for the genetic machine. I basically just check to see if it has blindness, and if it does have blindness, then it will start the animation sequence. So I could just send 1 second of blindness to it, and it'll trigger that automatically. Now in 1.16, that one's for education, which is 1.14, which doesn't have all the same feature set. In 1.16, you could just like trigger a mob to do an event directly. You don't have to kind of trick it into detecting a state. So my point here is that filters are pretty extensive and super powerful, allowing you to be more specific on the way you're targeting things. So what I'm going to do is kind of throw this off to the side for now, and we're going to keep this the same. I like the idea that it's attacking the player a maximum distance of 16 blocks. So if the player is 18 blocks away, the hammer won't attack, won't notice it as an enemy. Okay, cool. Now we could also go back into here and say in the component section, we could search for attack. And we could see nearest attackable target. Okay. Attack cooldown. So you could see there is in the attack defines an entity's melee attack and additional effects on it. That's cool. You could, when you attack them, you could give them, poison or blindness or nausea or something like that. So you can add an effect to go along with the attack. Nice. Cool. There's more. So another thing I like to do is, let's say we're back at the creeper here. I'll use this this folder here. I'll right click on it and do find in folder, and then you could just search attack. One of the ways you can kind of figure out what attacking things are available. Here's a blaze has a ranged attack. A cat, let's see, attack damage. I'm just looking through some of the different attacks. Here's a melee attack, a behavior melee attack. Melee, what about this? The Elder Guardian attack. Guardian attack. Ranged attack. So if you have your certain entities that you're familiar with, you can use this to kind of jump to them and find out where your matches exist. What I'm curious about is if there's a delayed, as you were saying, give them some warning. So the Ravager has a delayed attack. So the delayed attack, attacked once is false. Track the target is true. Require complete path, false. Stop random interval. Reach multiplier, that's cool. So how far does the player need to be away? Attack duration, hit percent. Okay. I think we should, what do you think we should do? Do you think we should throw in just a basic attack just to prove that it works and then get the delayed attack working, or just go straight for the delayed attack?
I would test it first before we do the delay, but that's just me.
All right. So we found a delayed attack in the Ravager that could be what we're looking for. So let's look at, I like to look at like the zombie or something like that, because zombie is a good kind of common melee attacker. So I look over here. I see behavior melee attack. So I'm going to collapse it. I'm going to copy it. Go back to my code. I'm going to give it melee attack. Go back to the zombie. We can also do Control F inside the document and see where we have matches for attack. This has a nearest attackable target that's a little different. Apparently, they don't like wandering traders. Baby turtles.
It's kind of messed up.
Yeah. You sick individual. All right. So there's, we got the melee attack. Okay, and then our attack damage. So 3 is, each one is a half of a heart. Hunt on Doom, what's up, dude? He's one of my heroes. Super talented. Works with Blockception.
Nice.
And yeah, helps me out a ton. Good dude. What's up? All right, so we are going to drop this here. Now we have attacking, a mount, a melee attack, and a target to focus on. So theoretically, the player should become a victim of some nondescript melee attack that causes 1.5 hearts damage. I'm going to save that. Go back into the template world. Go back to the template world. Oh! It's working, or it was working. Dude, chill. Ow. Okay. All right. You want to play like that? You want to play like that, boy? You want to play? You want to fight? Never mind.
Oh, sad day.
Never mind. Who gets the last word now? This is just immature. Well, it worked, right? So that's cool. The one thing I noticed about zombies, and let's dig into this a little bit deeper. Zombies in let's resume the game and summon a zombie. I know this because, oh, sorry, bro.
Daytime zombie murder.
Well, it's your fault, bro.
Run away.
I don't know if it's dark enough. Okay, good.
Saved him.
Yeah. So if you watch the hands when it attacks, see how the hands lift up? To do this in Game Maker's Castle, when you had to modify entities, I turned that arm into like the bottom jaw. So when he comes up to you, the big square dude comes up to you, though, it looks like he's biting you.
Ah, nice.
So that's interesting that we have this attack animation. So let's kind of leverage that and see how it looks before we go into the delayed. So I am going to go back to now. The animation of the zombie's arms coming up is not part of the behavior pack, so we're going to have to. I guess we can minimize that, and I'm going to go back. Same thing I did last time. I'm going to this time I'm going to right click on the resource pack and say open with code. Okay, and so now we have the vanilla resource pack. And so let's look at the zombie. And so what do we have here? Swimming. Attack bare hand. Interesting. Is bare hand variable is holding left is not equal to 1. If it is bare hand, then zombie attack bare hand. Okay. Let's try this. We're going to go into block bench. And we're going to open up this zombie inside of the resource pack. We have to be careful not to save or overwrite any of this stuff because you don't want to like sour our vanilla resource pack with our own changes. We want to keep the vanilla and not get our changes in there. But I'm going to go into models, entity, million zombies, and I think what Jig said last time is that version 1, then it's the old one. So let's see if that's accurate here. Okay, so I'm looking at this attack bare hand right here. Let's see. What's that look like? No. No, sir. No, sir. Attack rotation. Pause that. Attack. Oh, I wonder if there's any kind of variables that get set. Yeah, because that's not good. I wonder if we could adjust privileges on the reference file. Oh, on the template. Yeah, I could definitely open that up. Just for you, though. Just for you. But in the meantime, create your own. Yeah, if you create your own template and have changes to suggest, then that would be good. Okay, so I'm looking at this. It's not playing. So I'm wondering if maybe in the zombie there's a little more. If I go to I'm going to shrink up these. That's the animation controllers. If I go into the entity, close some of this stuff up. If I go into the entity for the zombie and zombie entity, it does borrow a lot of stuff from the humanoid, and then we do have this pre-animation variable, which is I believe for the walking. And so we have attack controller. Okay, so it's taking from the animation humanoid attack. Okay. Intriguing. Let's go back in here. Did we see attack in here? I see attack rotations, but not attack by itself. Well, let's try to import, see what happens. I haven't done that before. And
Down the
then,
rabbit hole.
yeah, why not? Why not?
I feel like this is like 90% of game design when you're pulling from other things.
Totally, yeah, and it's totally legal. Like that's why
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to demonstrate it, because it's valuable to have those resources available to you and not just be stuck
Yeah, absolutely.
on your own all the time. That's why I have you here backing me up.
I got your back.
You're gonna die. Yep. Yep. Just don't you worry. I got the video for TikTok though. We're good. You're gonna be famous.
Hold my soda.
That's right. Hold my soda. Hold my brewer soda. Okay. What are we gonna do about this situation? Okay, so one of the things I want to do is look at zombie. Let's see how it knows that we're attacking. Okay, so we're going to look at animation controllers, pretty heavy duty stuff. This is there's a lot of stuff in here. Controller humanoid charge. Okay, attack is controller animation humanoid attack. So I'm going to look at the animation controllers folder, humanoid, and there's attack right here. So it is running the attack rotations animation. It is running, so it has two different states, right? So it has an attacking state and then a default state. So if it is so the initial state is default, and so the way an animation controller will work, it'll tell you like what animation to play with this label. So this attacking state is the state that if that state is assigned, then these are the animations that it will play. And this is an array. It has square brackets, so it could play multiple animations. You can combine them together. And then the transition is saying that while I'm doing this animation, to transition to another animation, it has to be based on a certain condition. And that's the way this format is. It's like, what animation could I transition to? And what is the condition that would make me transition to that one? And if so in this case, if the variable attack time is less than 0, then it's going to transition back to it's going to go back to the default animation. The default animation sits there waiting for attacking to happen, and attacking happens when the attack time is greater than or equal to 1. And so this is how it toggles. So when the entity starts to attack, then this variable attack time must start to gain greater than 0, and that's what tells the animation controller, "Ooh, play the attack animation." And then when it's done attacking, when the entity is done attacking, that attack variable of attack time goes back to a minus, which tells the animation controller, "Oh, it's time for me to act natural." Act natural. And so this is the way the attacking is working. And this is the basic way an animation controller will work when you give it responsibility. And it's always when you're transitioning, there's one, let's see if it has all animations complete. No, it doesn't. So there is a state or of basically all of the animations being complete. So if you want to run an animation completely and then switch back to the default when the animation is done, there's a setting for that. So, you could say run the attack animation, and when it's complete, go back to the default, waiting for the entity to trigger something else. So the cool thing about this is Molang. This is kind of like a custom programming type language that Mojang put into these. And you could test for all kinds of cool stuff, just like we had with those filters. You could do similar things here. So these are tapping into attributes of the entity, like what it's doing and what's happening with it, in order to trigger this behavior in the animation controller. So you don't have to explicitly tell it everything to do. It could be more event driven. So if the entity is doing this, then I want this animation to play. If the entity is doing that, like here, this is a good one here. If the entity is a baby, then I want to give it a big head, right? So the baby has a larger sized head, so the animation actually scales the head bone larger. And so if it's a baby, then it shrinks the whole model down, but then it applies the big head animation, which scales the head up, which is why zombie babies have bigger heads. And then when the only way to transition it off of having a big head is if it's no longer a baby. So if it's not a baby, then go to the default, which the default does not have the big head animation in it. Doesn't have any animations in it. Okay, so that's the way this is working. And we could dig into the way it's implemented. Like when you have a specific need, you could delve into the way it's implemented to kind of figure that out. But in our case, we're noticing that this melee attack seems to have a negative value when it's not attacking and a positive value when it is attacking. So let's just make a note of that. And let's close this project. And we're going to open our we're going to open up the hammer. So I'm going to go into that model. Here you go, little guy. All right. And so if I go into the animate folder, you could see we have animation dude idle, animation dude walk. So if we can do animation dude, I'm going to add a new one by clicking that plus and do animation dude attack. And we will put it on play once and see if it plays multiple times. If not, we'll loop it. But we have animation dude attack. Now, what I'm going to do now on this one is just very simply take the base bone and make sure that our pivot is in a good spot. So if we look at this pivot tool, looks like we did put it right there in the center on the bottom. This is the anchor point, right? So if we're going to rotate it, it's going to be anchored on the pivot point. So if your pivot point's crooked, then it's going to anchor funky and your animation is going to be off. So you want to make sure you have your pivot point set. It's beautiful. Thank you. See, I'm proud. I have this. I took a screenshot, printed it out. I went to Kinko's or FedEx and printed out a color version of it, put it on the refrigerator. My family is so proud of me. Everyone's so proud of me. Okay, so this one, I mean, quite simply, we can, I clicked on the base bone here, and that brought it into my timeline. Now, one trick, if you're opening something, you're like, hey, it's already an animation, it's got a bunch of stuff going on, you can right click on the timeline and say bring up all animators, and that'll bring up any bone that has animation to it into the timeline, because a lot of time this timeline will start blank, even though your objects have animation in them. So that bring up all animators is a really good tip for bringing up things. So what I'm going to do is start the animation at this point. So we're going to set a keyframe by clicking plus on the rotation element for this. So we started it here, and then let's just say, at this point, we want to Boom. Let's do something like that. And then we'll bring it back up. Like nothing happened. So let's just see. Way too slow. That doesn't seem very
I was
aggressive.
about to say it. If you can animate
Let me just hammer this nail. No. Okay. So
it should be about 3 frames long at most.
yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll come back a little slower. So let's see now. Bam.
Yeah, there we go.
That I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Cool. We could do like fancy stuff like spin it around after. Yeah. When it's done, but I think that's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to save that. I wondered if I could save all of them. Well, I'm going to put it into my world, into my resource packs. Animations, dude animation JSON. Say yes. Okay, so it should have that animation in it now. Okay. Let's confirm that. Dude. Dude. All right. Animations. Dude. Dude idle. Dude walk. Dude attack. Boom. Okay. It's there.
Just to clarify, where specifically are you saving this one?
So this is part of the resource pack. It's in the animations.
Mm-hmm.
Animations are saved in the animations folder for dude.animation.json. And again, kind of a reminder, like in I think almost every case except for textures, the file name is irrelevant because it's really like when you see us connecting the wires, we're connecting the animation names. So animation dude idle, animation dude walk, animation dude attack are the things that we are keying in on in this. So in the resource pack, if we go to the entity dude, this is kind of like this was our table of contents. This is where we assemble everything that makes up the dude. So what I'm going to do is Control VV on one full line there. I'm going to put a comma there, and I'm going to change that to attack. So I'm basically defining the inventory of animations here. And see, this is called attack. Now, if we go back to this dude here, crikey. Okay, all right. So if we go back to this dude here, we had our attack time when it is attacking. So the attacking was set when the variable attack time was greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to copy that. That was from our vanilla resource pack that we kind of hunted down that animation. And so now we're going to try to set, this is kind of like the lightweight version of an animation controller. This isn't the original implementation they created for it, but we could potentially get by without an animation, full-on animation controller if we have simple enough things. So we're saying here basically like animate all the time, the idle. Yeah, we're continuing it, Turgay. We have the hammer ready to drop. So you are here for the right moment. Hopefully it works. So so the walking is just the modified move speed, which is obviously not quite work. Like the walking animation needs help, and this is the thing is something we can fix. All right, and then there's the attack, which happens when the attack time is greater than or equal to 0. So let's save that and see. So we created the animation. We told the entity that the animation exists. And then we told in the scripts animate, we told it to run that animation using its name that we created to execute, to trigger it when attack time is greater than or equal to. Okay, so let's try it. And it'll be nighttime. All right. Oh, hello. Do you see kind of when he summoned in, he kind of attacked. Let's see what this looks like now. Yeah, so one of the things I want to do is change the animation to looping, just so it can play over again. Where are we? Okay, so actually I want to go back to. So it didn't work. It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to my dude animations. I'm going to copy this loop, and I'm going to see what happens there. And it'll be fun to see if it goes crazy looping all the time.
This is going to come at you. I'm going to walk at you like this. If you get in the way, it's your fault.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's pretty funny.
All
right. This is great. All right. I think we should go to the animation controller route anyway. Oh god. All right. So the one thing that we could try is on this one. Go to my dude entity, and let's see if we can do something a little creative. I'm going to basically set it to the opposite of if modified move speed is is less than or equal to 0.1. And attack time. So what I'm trying to do here is basically explicitly tell it to go back to idle when it's not in either of the other two states. See if that helps. Just a little more accurate to what a animation controller would do. Is less than 0. So if the attack time is less than 0 and the speed is, if it's not moving and not attacking, then it should be idle. Otherwise, it should be walking or attacking. Let's see if that works. All right. El Otro, what is up? I'll show you what we're doing. We've made a custom entity in Minecraft, and now we're giving it some behaviors. Dude, I have to put you out of your misery. You're going to have such a headache.
Goodbye, Hammer. Poof.
Well, we'll see you later, Jim. All right, so summon. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You want to play like that? You want to play like that, boy? Whoa.
Well, that's entertaining.
Oh, we have something with a speed multiplier on it. Dang. Whoo! This is cool. This is my next map here. Hammer PvP. Ooh. How about changing smiley face to an angry face once he starts to attack? Yeah, I like that. And does anybody go ahead, chat? Tell us what entity does that. Oh boy. Let me just kill that dude, get him out of his misery. Oh, there he's dropping his loot for us. All right. So that's funny. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up an animation controller because we were going to want this to be a little more sophisticated. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to define the animation controller here. We'll call it generic, and we'll call it animation.controller.dude. Always, yeah, 24/7 attack mode. I mean, that's what they say. If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So, I mean, just
not a bug.
do what you're born to do. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Okay, so I've created generic as a new animation, which is actually going to be my animation controller. And I did in my template pack include a basic animation controller. So we'll kind of, we'll use that. We're going to tweak some of the value. Yes, Kevin Fernandez. The ghast face changes when it's attacking. So, so we can research that to figure out a way, the way to manipulate the the rendering of the texture. Like you can totally change textures given as part of this. But we're not quite there yet. So Kevin, yes, you do win. Stay on the line until we get your information. We'll send you. We can't send you anything right now, but you win. You do. You win the fame. You win the fame. The millions of viewers know your name now. Okay, so we have the animate now. So the animate is kind of like the entity. It's like, what should I be running when I start? And so instead of like the idle animation, what we're going to do is we're going to say the controller should run first. So we're basically assigning the controller in charge of all animation duties for the entity. He said duty. Okay, so I'm going to the animation controllers section, and I have sample animation controller. Right, and then we have controller.animation.sample. Now, what did we have in here? We had animation.controller.dude. So I'm going to actually copy that and go back in here. And this, so we have some things like our format, and then we're defining that that it's an animation controller, and then this is the actual name. So this is important here. This is the name that we're referencing that has to match what's in our inventory list on the other entity. So we have animation controller dude. Why are you upset? Doesn't match the pattern. Okay, it wants us to do controller.animation. Some of the plugins that we're running are that I showed you in the earlier videos. Okay, so let's make that happy, and we'll go back to our original dude, and we'll put that in there that way. So it's controller.animation. All right. So this is now the controller that's in charge. So I'm going to use my arrows to kind of collapse things. Boom. Everything that you see on the screen after I open this up is part of this controller. Dude said duty. I love how mature we are. Okay, so we have the initial state, walking and attacking. So the idle state is what is going to be our default. So default is the actual name of the animation state. The animation that's running is called the idle animation. And now we're referencing our inventory here. These names, idle, walk, and attack, these names exactly have to match the animations that we assign here. So we have idle, attack, and then walk. Oh no, attack. Okay. And see, we have the is delayed attacking here. What's the most pixels you can set an entity texture? Remember setting, and it worked. Yeah, like I don't know what the most density is on a picture on a texture, but yeah, I mean you could even take an existing texture, and scale it up proportionally, so that the same ratio exists, and then make that more detailed and apply that same texture to your model, because essentially the UV mapping is still the same, even though your pixels have gotten smaller. So you can get some really detailed texture. Again, it comes at a cost, so you don't want to go overboard. And you're in Minecraft, so you don't have to go too wild. So bringing back our previous state here, the attacking animation. Now we have we've come up with our own attack animation, but this one is so the default, right? So I'm going to copy this state. No, I'm not. We'll copy this one first, because this is the one that tells it, hey, we're attacking, right? So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to transition to attack when the variable attack time is greater than or equal to 0. Now, the other thing I should do, going into bedrock.dev, into Molang, Control F, attack. It's interesting. Variable attack time is going to be, all right, so I'm going to hunt this down real quick. What I'm thinking is this variable attack time, it's because it says variable, and it's as opposed to query, it's more of a variable. So we're going to search for, in this entire dealio file, edit, find in files. So find in everything. Variable.attack_time. And then we have humanoid default attacking player. As target. I don't know. I'm not seeing any first person controller variable attack times greater than. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing a reference to it, but I'm going to assume that it is a valid variable for us to use. Not everything is documented, so we kind of have to deal with that. So if the modified, so we're going to trigger while we're idling. We're going to transition to walking if the move speed is greater than 0.1, and we're going to attack if the attack time is greater than or equal to 0, with the assumption that it's negative when we're not attacking. So if it gets handed off to walk because the entity starts to move, because we have the random stroll behavior defined, so the random stroll behavior will kind of force it to start to move, especially if it's in a melee attack also and wants to target a, it's its target entity and start to walk there, you're going to want it to start moving. So it's going to start walking. So when it is time for it to walk, while it's walking, it's going to go back to idling if it stops. So if it's less than 0.1, then it goes back to idling. And if it's attacking, we're going to pull the same attacking detection here. Okay. If the attack time is greater, then call the attack animation. And so the attack animation is this name, and it matches this name here. We have the same word used multiple times, but they are different, right? So this animation controller state of attack is kind of like it tells this condition tells this state to run, and this state tells this animation to run, and this animation is the one that's defined over in dude here as attack. So we're using the same word for two different settings. They don't have to all be the same. You just have to know that you are in your animation controller, you're handing off to a state and you're defining what a state does. And this state does the attack animation. And it goes to, like I told you before, you can do all animations finished. So when it's finished, you can just have it go back to default when it's done. And if it's still attacking, then it'll trigger the attack again and hand it right back to the attack, and then go back to idle, go back to the attack. So let's leave it at that. Save it. Go back to this one. Save it. Sheesh. Are we together? Are we together? Hammer time. Dude. Are you kidding me? Interesting how the, I guess that's part of the blend transition. It's not hammering all the way down.
All the way down, yeah.
Funny little guy. That's cute. You can, I guess that makes sense. Like, if you're not within range of the actual hammer, on the handle there. You're not smart enough to know. All right. I wonder if I can make my face be, there we go. There you go. All right, we're silly. All right, so let's see. Save and quit. This is all part of a distraction. Let's see if we can get this sucker working. I do like the delayed attack. We did have that in there. Let's just say if the attack time is greater than 0. And then let's say if it's, greater than 0. Curious about that. And again, like that variable attack time, we didn't see that used anywhere else, which is concerning. Let's see. I'm going to go back to variable attack time. Oh, that's in the animate controller folder. Variable attack time. There we go. Oops. I'm looking. I'm not sharing. Sorry. All right. So yeah. Attack positions. Variable attack time. Animations. These are all animations. What I'm curious of is if there's any definition of variable attack time anywhere else that we might be manipulating it. attack head rotation. It's using variable attack time. I'm feeling like variable attack time is a good thing here. If I say equals, no, equals, no. Okay. All right. So let's test this change out. Let's see what we got. Oh shoot, I'm in the wrong perspective. There we go. Working. Look at us troubleshooting. That's it, boy. You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
It's gonna be close. You win.
Sign me up. A's Clan.
Put me in the ring, coach.
All right. So I think the blend transition needs to be a little more abrupt. The blend transitions are really cool if you have more complex animations. So the basically what that's going to do is kind of interpret the movements of where a bone is supposed to be from one animation to the other, and it's going to create a fade between those two positions so that it's more natural as it transitions from one state to the next. Like for instance, if it's kind of bending over a little bit, or out of position, and you're switching to the idle rather than it being out of position and then just jumping straight up, if you have a transition, it'll actually kind of stand up and it'll look more natural having it do that automatically. Okay, so it was doing animation because the time always stay at 0, right? The player is not close enough. I think the thing was that we were checking for if the animation time was minus, then don't attack, and if it's 0 or greater, then do attack. And what I did was I said, like, if it's 0 or less, don't attack, but if it's greater than 0, then do attack. So I basically just slid that condition up from the between 0 and -1 to 0 and greater than 0. So I'm not sure kind of how in the humanoid how that works, the way we copied it, but we did a little troubleshooting to kind of come up with our own solution there. So blend transitions, I'm going to make 0. It's nice to have them and know where they are. Actually, it's like the blend transition for walk, we'll make that 2. And the idle, I guess, see if 0 for that makes it better. Oh, I resumed the game. You got to save and quit. Go back in. Okay, so summon. Oh, because you died last time, didn't you? Oh, I'm so good. Okay, let's see. I'm like, not the greatest. We could manipulate the speed as well. That could be an issue. Right. So like if we had the walk animation, we could try to increase the time on that. I don't think we're going to mess with that though. But we got it working. That's good. I think the next thing we could look at doing, probably in the next video, would be a new sound effect or a particle effect, maybe when it hits. Well, to see how that works, how we would do that. we could take advantage of the attack time and do something with that to trigger when the particle effect. I wonder if we could use the attack time as a way to scale the particle effect, so we make it bigger as the attack time gets greater. So it's kind of like a effect. Well, so we can experiment with that, and that would be using Snowstorm, which was made by Giannis, who made Blockbench as well. So we can create some kind of particle effect and then attach it to the entity and then trigger that particle effect at a certain condition. So before we leave, I'm going to kind of search through some of the stuff that we talked about because we had some good input on things like the Ghast changes its texture when it's attacking. It makes a really gross face with like red eyes. The Ghast is like one of the creepiest things, like the little baby sounds that it makes. So creepy. Creepy Ghast. So we're going to go into the Ghast entity. So we should always start when you're looking at like in a resource packet, an entity, always start with the entity folder. Remember, that's the table of contents. That's like all of the things that the entity, the visualization part of the entity contains. So we'll go to Ghast. And so what do we have here? We have textures. We have a default texture and we have a shooting texture. Ta-da! The problem is we don't know when those textures, what's triggering those textures to change. And so one of the things that we haven't really gotten into, which I'm guessing it's in, and we'll see, is the render controllers. If I go into the Ghast, okay, so there's texture in the Ghast textures. It's defining an array of skins because we have two skins. So it's saying texture.default is the first one, which is index 0 of an array, and then texture.shooting will be the second one, which will be index 1 of the array. And so in here, where we're defining, like this is our basic elements that a render controller will define, like what geometry, hint. Maybe we could change the geometry of a model based on certain conditions. So you can change the shape and texture of a model given certain conditions. But we have here textures, and for the texture, it's doing array of skins, variable is charging, right? So this is curious. Like variable is charging is a Boolean. It's either is charging or is not charging. So if it's not charging, the return value for false is 0. The index for the default Ghast is 0. This first element of the array is the 0 index. And so as soon as the Ghast is charging because it sees the enemy, that becomes true. And true, expressed as an integer, is 1. And so index 1 of the array is the shooting face texture. So this is kind of clever. It's using the Boolean of whether it's charging or not to trigger a 0 or a 1, which are the two elements, the indexes of the array. And so based on that state of is charging, it's deciding which texture to show. Pretty cool. We can do that. Yeah. So Turgay wants to learn texture changing depending on modes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool. Like I think what we could do is probably with the hammer instead of so this is really cool. This variable is charging. So I'm going to go back to like how I would piece this together and how Turgay you could start working on some of this. I would say I'm in my Molang section of Bedrock Dev, and I say variable dot is, yeah, that's so sad. Variables. Let's try query dot. As, yeah, there you go. So I would think for our hammer, we could do something like query has target. So it'll return a 1 if it has a target. It'll return a 0 if it doesn't. So if the hammer is mad at you or coming to attack you, then we could change the texture of the hammer while it has you as a target. So you kind of get that visual, knowing that you are in its sights. So I would say we can do that. Basically borrow the Ghast's render controller and use query has target to decide which one of the two skins to show. What about texture? Like imagine a player looking at NPC speaks, making the mouth move. Yeah, so that's going to be more. And Gatlin, you've been doing some animated textures with some other projects that I don't think we could talk about, but that's more just like an atlas where you just repeat. You in like say Photoshop, you would take the texture if it's 64 by 64. You take the image and add 64 pixels below it, and then you could like copy that and paste it below, and then change the animation, change the frame below, and it'll animate that that atlas. I don't know if that's something that has to be triggered in all cases. So I don't know. Do we have an entity that animates texture?
We do have one, but I think it's kind of, we can't show that one just yet.
Right.
The other way to kind of think about it is, I know Minecraft does kind of a texture swapping. So you have to have like exactly the same way that the Ghast is actually doing it. There's that. Other programs do what's called like a flip book. So if you were to look up like texture flip book, like on Google, just look it up, you'll see that they've actually got a strip of textures, or a texture with a strip of different images on them, and it kind of moves through them. I know that that's another way to get textures to kind of flip depending on the game engine that you're working on. Because we did it with, we had like a what's that silly thing? It was like a blinking light on something that was like a camera that was looking for you, like it was turning on and off. So it was basically just swapping between two textures. As far as getting something to like look like the mouth is actually moving, you may need to put in multiple textures. And for Minecraft, I don't think that that's really necessary to have more than two. So
Yeah.
yeah, the creeper flash exploding. That was one of the other ones that I was thinking about. That one and the zombie, because they change as well depending on day or night. So there's something going on there too. So those would be a couple of directions you could dig in there to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah. So just to address Gumby's question about, yeah. So Turgay, you said you have some experience with animating blocks. I recommend that would be something to try with the entity texture. Take the texture PNG and increase its size based on, and do it in powers of 2. So you know, 2. What are we gonna do? We're gonna do like 2, 4, 8, 16 kind of deal. I would say just do it in powers of 2 so that
Yeah, if your original texture is 128, then it needs to be 256. And then you can add a third one, which make it, I never do the one in between 256 and 128. Put you at 4.
yeah. Start with two frames first.
Yeah, and then add a
And
third or a
then
fourth.
start adding more. Yeah, I think the number of frames that you add has to be at certain increments. Okay, or the hit effect that turns the entity red. I think that hit effect is just like the death animation, I think that's something that you can't. That's a I think that's still hard coded.
Yeah.
The hit effect, but the creeper has a right. So it has behavior swell, and so if we can go into the animation controllers for creeper swelling. So there's a creeper swelling animation. Let's also check the render controller real quick just to see. Creeper render controller. There you go. Look at that. So RGB and alpha all are being tweaked based on it's as an overlay color, which is interesting, based on whether or not it's swelling.
Mm-hmm. I wondered if that's how they were doing it. I didn't want to say anything till I knew, but I wondered if that's how they were dealing with that.
Yeah, and I bet you the animation for the creeper is actually the swelling is scaling it. Yep, yeah. So it's scaling the creeper in all dimensions, all body parts in all
Mm-hmm.
dimensions, proportional to the amount of time it's swelling. And that is interesting, like variable swelling scale, um, scale 1, scale 2, scale 3 is I don't think is a built-in like a reserved variable. Let's go into the entity for creeper and see if we could find any definitions of these things here. Yeah. So in our pre-animation, we have the swelling scale 1 is defined by this algorithm here. It's using variable wobble, so it's got some a wobble variable that's being created to create probably some fluctuation, so that it kind of vibrates while it's scaling. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that scares people. Like, oh, math! I should have paid attention. So there's actually Arts by Kev. He has a lot of good variables, and he's got a pretty good overview of kind of like math in animation. And there are some other resources I've used to kind of get my head around it as well that I could share at some point in the future if we're stuck on that. But yeah, that's the yeah. So I think that explains Gumby's question about the creeper. It's a pretty complex system that define that what the swelling looks like. It's a pretty complex programming that went into that, but it is customizable, and the code is there. I wonder how it would look if you remove it all except for the head. You can do that. You could totally do that. It's super easy. Math.
Just start fiddling with the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to do that, but but to understand how sine and cosine affect a linear, you know, a timeline and a single value, like, and the easing that it creates, and also kind of the variation that it creates. Um, you could picture a wave, but if you just look at one axis of that, the y-axis, for instance, of a wave, it's just really a number that's going between 1 and 0, or 1 minus 1. Like it's going between these two values, and the way the curve works, it goes up and it stays there a little bit longer, and it goes down, stays there a little bit longer, it goes up, stays a little longer. So it creates an easing as opposed to a diagonal linear to do animation that is less natural looking. So sine and cosine is used a lot in animation because it creates a nice easing, and it also creates a kind of like a circling rotate, back and forth pattern. And there's probably a lot more to it, but that's what I've found it to be useful for in a simple way. Cool. So anybody else have any questions? I think we're about an hour and almost an hour and a half. That's kind of where I want to keep these as a max in general, so that everyone has time to follow along, and then also kind of work on your own stuff. And then next time, I think we're going to address particles and sounds. So I think we got a good conversation. We're stretching out the curve. No, we have not talked about that, Neo. So Neo's asking if we talked about slowing the animation or stretching it out. Actually, we do kind of have a bookmark in that because we're unhappy with some of the animations that we have currently. So, I should be like,
Speaking of bookmarks, I'm marking that one.
Yeah, one and done right there. Yeah, so this is our little hammer dude. We gave him the attack drop animation. It's actually looking a little better than it was, but his walking, I'm not super. I mean, the walking cycle is awful anyway. Arts by Kev also does great tutorial on walk cycles. So that would be a good one to watch. I'm still a little unhappy with that. We could put a bookmark in that and tweak that. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We're create this custom entity. We're giving it custom behaviors. We're dealing with all of the customization options you can do. So thank you guys for. He was just waiting for. He was. I think they call that like spawn camping. All right, it's just waiting for me to show up. Fine. Aha! I win. We can be friends if we share a head. There we go. Hammerhead. That's actually that's a good screenshot right there. All right, cool. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure to subscribe and share it and all that stuff because we're going to start the next one. It'll definitely be next Friday for sure. And if I have time, I'll squeeze in another video before that. So you'll get the kind of a short notice alert. Do we have a Discord? I don't have a public Discord yet. So thank you for asking, and we'll consider kind of doing that. You can find me on a bunch of other Discords, some of the other Bedrock Discords. I probably should come up with a list of ones that I'm in as well. But yeah, for now, send messages in the comments in the videos, and we'll be using those as our method of interacting. But yeah, we'll hopefully grow to the point where the Discord server becomes more important. But yeah, cool. Gatlin, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I was just getting our last little notes here.
All right, awesome. All right, team. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot for joining. Later.
Adios.